Hi, this is Brian with Prophetless Media and Post, and today we're going to talk about how to export out our camera and lens distortion from PFTrack 2020 and get it into Davinci Resolve Fusion. So with the new PFTrack, there's been a lot of changes, and one of the more notable changes is the distortion workflow. In previous versions of PFTrack, we were able to export out a PF barrel file which we could bring inside Fusion and add into the lens distortion node to add in our lens distortion values. But that has been removed in the newest version. I think they've discontinued it, but currently they do not have that option. And the only option we have is the STmap, which is pretty universal between a lot of software. So in the new version, we're going to have to export out STmaps for Fusion. So let's take a look at how we would do that. We go down to distortion, and we have our undistorted STmap and our redistortion STmap. And so since this is a prime lens and the distortion doesn't change over time, we only need a single frame. Now we need to choose our format. And so for the format, we have a bunch of different choices. The one that I found to be working pretty well currently is the Autodesk FBX ASCII version 2019. And this is the latest version. So with those things set, we can hit our export. I've already exported this out. So let's head over into Fusion. So here we are in Fusion. And let's bring in our FBX camera. So go to Import, FBX Scene, locate our camera, and open it up. Click on anything or take off anything that you don't need or do need. And by default, everything looks good. And just press OK. So now we have our camera and we have our point cloud. Now we just need to bring in our STmaps. So let's bring those in. We have our undistorted STmap and our redistorted STmap. One of the ways we could distort the footage using STmaps was using the texture node. But the texture node definitely has some drawbacks and it's not as accurate as we need it to be for visual effects. So instead of me going through the problems with the texture node, I'll point to a video that went in pretty good depth about STmaps in the texture node, and that's at Milo Labs on YouTube. And I'm going to put a link in the top right corner right now, and you can go check out that video, and he discusses all of the issues that happen with the texture node. Not only that, he's working on a macro that's going to be part of the reactor tool set, which hopefully will come out soon, which will also solve this STmap problem inside of Fusion. From what I see in the video, it looks very promising. Look forward to seeing that. But in the meantime, we need to figure out a way to make our visual effects work. So one way you can do it is if you have a version of Syntheyes, the Syntheyes Fusion composition export option is actually quite good. So if you have Syntheyes, you'll be able to do this. If you don't have Syntheyes, I believe you can get a trial version and then you would export out this script using the distortion workflow and then you'll have the same option. So let me show you what I mean. So here is a Syntheyes script that I exported out using the Fusion composition export. And what that does is it gives you your shot. It gives you everything you need. It gives you your STmap. So here's the STmap from Syntheyes. And then it gives you this node right here, which is a custom tool that was built for the Syntheyes script. This custom tool right here actually works on the STmaps from PFTrack also. So if we could take this and make this into a macro, we would be able to use it for all of our STmap needs. What you could do is get this export, grab this particular node, and this node is exactly the same as the redistortion node. So all we need is this one right here. So what we'll do is we'll right click on it, go to macro, create macro. And if we do that, you're going to see you're going to get this. Here's the undistorter. And we have our output, image 1 and image 2. And those are the three things you need. Now I've already done this and I'll show you my finished version. So let's close that one out. I'll right click again under macro. And you can see right here at the top, Lens STmap Synth. So what I did was I just renamed it here. And then I renamed image 1, which is where the STmap would go in, and image 2, I renamed to image because that's the image that will be distorted. And now I save this as a macro, and now I can use it for anything to do with STmaps. So now if I look up our lens, you can see I have my lens STmap synth. We can add that in. Now I'm going to bring my STmap in there in our main clip. And now you can see here I got my lens distortion, my undistorted plate. So now let's take this undistorted plate, bring it into our camera. And now let's take a look at our 3D camera. If you're not seeing the background, then there's a couple things within the camera. First one to check is make sure that the enable image plane is turned on. The other thing is, as you can see right here, the clipping plane is very small. So let's unlock our camera just for a minute and let's stretch this out. There we go. Now we can see the background. I'm going to relock that so we don't change it. So let's just make sure that everything's lining up. Okay, it looks great. So the camera's lining up perfectly. The next thing that we need to do after the merge is add a 3D renderer. We'll put that up there. Now you'll notice we have a little bit of an issue here. The renderer is set to the default size of the final composition, which is not actually what we want because we're using an undistorted workflow. This renderer should be rendering out at the same size as the undistorted. So we need to just change this renderer to render out at this size. So we can do that by, let's go over to the image. We'll turn off auto resolution and just change the size, the width and height to match the undistorted. And just to have consistency, I'm going to change the depth to float 32. Okay. And now that we have that, you can see, there we go. Now we have our render is the same size as the undistorted. And now we can bring in the redistortion. So let's add in our lens STmap synth. And we'll bring our renderer into that. Now it's been redistorted back to the original size of 3840 by 2160. And now we can check to make sure this is working well. Let's go, let's put our main footage up and let's do a split view. So this is our original footage and this will be our redistorted footage. And if we look real close, you can see that it's pixel accurate, but we are getting a little bit of softening, and that's to be expected. So this is one way you could bring in your 3D camera and lens distortion from PFTrack into Davinci Resolve Fusion. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again in the next video.